I want you to take a second and just really think about the very last thing you ate.
Like literally the last meal or snack you had today.
Exactly, yeah. Picture it in your mind right now. And be honest. When you made the decision to eat that specific food, was it chosen because of, how it would make your body feel tomorrow?
Or was it purely for that immediate fleeting thrill of the taste?
Right, just right there in the moment. Because, well, welcome to today's deep dive, and today we are getting into some truly fascinating source material about exactly that choice.
We really are. It's a fundamental tension we all deal with.
It is. We are pulling from these scripts, outlining the psychology of diet, and they heavily draw from these philosophical and spiritual texts from the Akan Jyoti publications of 1968 and 1971.
Which are incredible sources, by the way. Very far ahead of their time.
Oh, absolutely. And the goal of our deep dive today is to unpack this, well, this radical shift in how we need to view nutrition as we age.
Moving completely away from being what the texts call a slave to taste.
Yes, and shifting our entire focus toward accumulating vital energy, or what the sources call prana. Because I know I do this, it is so easy, especially when we're younger, to treat our bodies like indestructible machines.
Oh, definitely. You just throw whatever fuel in the tank and assume the machine will keep incinerating it.
Right. But what we're really talking about today is that intersection of biology, psychology, and, honestly, discipline.
Because continuing those youthful, taste-driven eating habits into older age, the sources say it has dire consequences. It's not just a little sluggishness or weight gain.
No, it precipitates a systemic catastrophic breakdown of the body's core machinery. And the sources actually pinpoint a very specific age milestone for this biological shift, age 58.
Right, 58, which is when they say this biological shift really accelerates.
Exactly. They introduced this concept called Jatharagni.
Which translates to the digestive fire.
Digestive fire, yeah. And they explain that as you hit your late 50s, this Jatharagni naturally, inevitably, just begins to dim.
And that maps perfectly onto modern physiological realities, By that stage of life, your basal metabolic rate drops.
You're producing fewer digestive enzymes, right?
Yeah, less hydrochloric acid and slower gut motility. The physical muscle contractions that move food through the digestive tract, they just slow down significantly.
So the body's ability to effortlessly break down complex, heavy stuff is fundamentally compromised. And here's where I want to say, okay, let's unpack this. Because the texts deliver what might be the most vivid, almost terrifying warning in all of our source material.
The funeral pyre imagery.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They state that if you hit this age and your digestive fire is fading, but you are still just eating for taste, meaning you're dealing with bloating, constantly dissolving antacids in a glass of water after dinner.
So it's trying to force the system to handle it.
Right. If that's you, the text says you aren't actually eating food anymore. You are collecting materials for your own funeral pyre.
It is such a brutal image. But, it highlights the sheer physical danger of ignoring your body's changing parameters.
It really does. Because, okay, if your body's a house, think of Jatharagni as the furnace down in the basement.
I like that analogy.
Right. So in your 20s, that furnace is absolutely roaring. You can throw anything in there, a whole greasy pizza, heavily spiced, deep fried, whatever.
And it just incinerates it. No problem at all.
Exactly. But at 58, that fire has faded to these glowing embers. So throwing heavy, oily, complex logs into a fading fire, it doesn't create heat anymore.
No, it just creates dangerous, thick smoke.
Yes.
Yes?
It chokes the whole house.
Right.
So I guess my question is, does this mean that just the sheer act of prioritizing flavor over function is actively destroying the body's machinery?
Well, yes, it really does. Because when you prioritize that sensory indulgence, you override your awareness of what the body actually needs.
You're completely ignoring the dashboard warning lights.
Exactly. And when that digestive fire weakens, the body simply cannot process heavy, spicy, or greasy foods. So it leads to a systemic breakdown.
That's smoke from the furnace.
Right. The smoke is the systemic toxicity. The food stagnates in the gut, it ferments, and that creates gas, which is exactly the bloating the texts warn about.
Wow. And then we just reach for an antacid.
Yeah, you mask the symptom, but the root cause remains. You literally have rotting matter inside your digestive tract. And the body has to deal with that somehow. I can't just leave it there.
So the immune system, the liver, everything just goes into overdrive.
Precisely. The body is now forced to divert massive amounts of energy to clean up that mess you made by indulging your tongue.
So instead of extracting energy from your meal, you're spending your baseline energy reserves.
You are literally draining your own life force.
Which completely defeats the purpose of eating. So if we shouldn't eat just for taste, How should we approach a meal? Because the sources transition to this really fascinating concept.
The idea of food not just being a way to fill the stomach, but as a yagya.
Yes, yagya. A sacred ritual or a sacrifice.
It shifts the entire perspective on consumption.
It does. It moves it from a mundane chore into an act of deep reverence. Because they say when food is consumed with restraint, purity, and absolute total focus, like physically chewing each morsel thoroughly.
Which is so rare these days with everyone looking at their phones.
Right. But if you do that, the food doesn't just digest, it transforms. It turns into prana.
Vital energy.
Yeah, vital energy racing through your bloodstream.
Yeah.
And this is positioned as the true system for longevity.
Because biologically, when you masticate your food that thoroughly, you are massively increasing the surface area of the food particles.
You're mixing them with enzymes in your saliva, right?
Exactly, like salivary amylase. It starts breaking down carbohydrates before the food even travels down your esophagus.
You're basically outsourcing the heavy lifting of digestion to your mouth.
Yes. And the energy your stomach would have spent churning that heavy, unchewed mass that's freed up, that saved energy is exactly what the texts are referring to as prana.
That makes so much sense. You feel light and energized because the energy isn't trapped down in your gut.
It's readily available in your bloodstream.
To maximize this prana, the sources don't just leave us with philosophical concepts, though. They give us a very specific, uncompromising dietary ratio.
The 70-30 rule.
Yes. They mandate that a plate should consist of 70% raw food, like salads and sprouts, and only 30% cooked food.
Which is a stark inversion of the standard modern diet where, 90 to 100% of the plate is heavily cooked or processed.
But wait, I had to challenge this 70% raw rule, though. Because if we look at evolutionary biology, anthropologists basically agree that cooking food is what gave early humans the massive calorie surplus to grow our big brains, right?
Right, yeah, the cooking hypothesis.
Yeah. So why do these 1968 texts argue that cooking destroys vitality when modern science says cooking is, like, literally what made us human?
Well, it's a brilliant point of friction, but it really comes down to the difference between caloric density for raw survival versus, the accumulation of prana for optimal longevity.
Oh, I see. So surviving a harsh winter versus thriving at age 60.
Exactly. An early human starving in the wilderness needs those rapid calories to survive. But we aren't starving really humans. Our modern problem isn't a lack of calories. It's an excess of dead, stagnant matter that overworks the digestive fire.
We have way too much fuel and not enough fire.
Precisely. And from the perspective of these texts, raw foods, especially living foods like sprouted greens or seeds, they inherently possess more uncorrupted prana.
Because they retain their natural enzymes.
Yeah, they almost digest themselves once you chew them properly. They demand almost nothing from your fading jatharani.
But there's also a massive psychological component to this 70-30 ratio.
Right.
I mean, a plate that is 70% raw sprouts and fibrous greens requires significantly more chewing.
Oh, definitely. You cannot mindlessly inhale a massive bowl of raw vegetables the way you can. Like, inhale a bowl of heavily cooked sauce-laden pasta.
You physically have to slow down, so it breaks that dopamine loop of soft comfort food.
It does. It fundamentally shifts the eater from being a passive consumer looking for a quick sensory hit into an active, conscious participant.
You have to physically work for the nutrition, which brings you into the present moment. And that enforces the focus required for that yagya we talked about.
Because you are physically incapable of rushing through it.
And if you spend all your baseline energy trying to break down a heavy cooked meal, that explains the physical lethargy. But the text suggests this physical tax crosses the blood-brain barrier. It's not just your gut that's exhausted.
No, it's your mind, too.
Which brings us to the core mantra from the Akhan Jyoti quotes of 1968 and 1971. As the food, so the mind. Or in Hindi, Jaisa An, Vaisa Man.
It is an elegant summary of the entire philosophy. It basically posits that there is absolutely no firewall between your stomach and your consciousness.
What you put into your digestive tract dictates the physical architecture of your mental state. And to understand how a text from 1968 knew this, we just have to look at what modern biology calls the enteric nervous system.
The second brain.
Exactly. The gut is lined with millions of neurons, directly communicating with the brain via the vagus nerve. The ancient texts obviously didn't have the anatomical vocabulary for the vagus nerve, but they clearly understood the mechanism.
They observed the cause and effect perfectly, and they get very specific about this physiological impact, explicitly contrasting heavily spiced food with simple, pure food.
Right. They state that heavily spiced, rich food acts as an aggressive stimulant to the nervous system,
It spikes it, but ultimately it leaves the nervous system entirely exhausted.
whereas simple, pure food, what the text calls sattvic food, keeps the body cool on the inside and the mind completely calm.
It's clean, sustainable energy.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. We usually separate our mental state from our diet, right? Like completely.
Oh, all the time. We blame a bad mood on an email.
Yeah. But if spicy or heavy food exhausts the nervous system, then maybe that midday brain fog or that heavy lethargy or anxiety we feel at 2 p.m.
It's not just needing a nap.
Exactly. It's actually our nervous system literally flipping the breakers and shutting down from overstimulation.
Because you plugged 1,000 space heaters into the electrical grid of your body by eating that complex, highly stimulating meal.
That is such a wild realization. And it perfectly explains the mandate from the source to turn your kitchen into your arshahalaya.
Your pharmacy or dispensary.
Right. The kitchen is not a place for entertainment. It is the laboratory where you compound the medicine that dictates your reality.
Reframing it as a pharmacy strips away all that emotional baggage we attach to food. I mean, you wouldn't walk into a pharmacy and just start swallowing random brightly colored pills because you were bored.
No, you would look for the specific, targeted compound needed to optimize your biological system, which ties into the most profound, sweeping promise from the 1968 text. It states, "He who conquers the tongue conquers diseases."
Because the tongue is the ultimate gatekeeper.
Yeah. It is the single point of failure.
If you can conquer that immediate primal urge for sensory gratification right there on the taste buds, you intercept that entire cascade of systemic breakdowns.
You protect the fading Jatharani.
You prevent the gut fermentation, you preserve your vagus nerve from overstimulation. It all starts and ends with mastering the tongue.
He who conquers the tongue conquers diseases. So as we bring all of these concepts together, the sources leave us with a set of final, non-negotiable rules for eating, and the golden rule is beautifully blunt.
The stomach is not a dustbin.
Not a dustbin, but we treat it like one every single day.
We do, every time we eat leftovers just so they don't go bad in the fridge, or when we mindlessly snack just to keep our hands busy.
We are utilizing our complex internal biology as a waste receptacle for excess matter. The instruction here is clear. You should only ever eat enough to keep your body functioning.
And you should never, under any circumstances, eat so much that it increases laziness.
If you feel lethargic, heavy, or sleepy after a meal,
Yeah.
you have failed the objective of the meal. You have gained energy. You've spent it.
The meal has ceased to be a source of fuel and has become a biological burden.
So the final mantra we are extracting from these texts for you to take into your daily lives is this: abandon taste, choose strength. No excuses, build a system.
Build a system is the crucial takeaway there, because relying on sheer willpower meal after meal, day after day,
It's a losing game.
it is. Willpower depletes. You have to build an architectural approach to your nutrition, like enforcing that 70-30 raw-to-cooked rule.
Physically treating your kitchen as a pharmacy.
Exactly. So that gathering prana becomes your default state, not a daily struggle against temptation.
And this is why this deep dive matters to you right now. It doesn't matter if you are approaching that milestone age of 58, if you are already well past it, or if you are decades away.
The biological principles remain exactly the same.
We do. The shift from sensory indulgence to energy accumulation is the ultimate life hack for sustained vitality. If you want a mind that is calm, clear, and sharp, and a body that isn't suffocating under the weight of its own metabolic waste, you have to stop chasing the fleeting thrill of taste.
Because the consequences of ignoring this wisdom aren't just a few extra pounds. As these texts have clearly warned us, the ultimate cost is the exhaustion of your nervous system and the extinguishing of your digestive fire.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we want to leave you with a final lingering question to ponder as you go about your day.
A little thought experiment based on everything we've uncovered from the Akhan Jyoti texts.
Right. If you truly started treating your kitchen as your pharmacy tomorrow, if you began prescribing yourself foods strictly for vital energy rather than for comfort, what is the very first item you would have to throw out of your pantry?
It forces total honesty, doesn't it, about what we use for fuel versus what we use for comfort.
It really does. So think back to that meal I asked you to picture at the very beginning of our deep dive. The next time you sit down to eat, pause and ask yourself, is this for the immediate thrill of the taste on my tongue? Or is this the vital energy my body needs to feel alive tomorrow?